Hey, welcome. Today we're going to talk about something I think a lot of us wrestle with, maybe late on a Sunday night. It's that huge personal conflict between having a safe, secure career and that nagging feeling that you should be chasing a passion.
So let's just get right to it. Is it? Is that steady paycheck really worth your happiness? That's the big question we're digging into today. And it's a tough one, right? It pits what's practical against what's personal, what's predictable against what's, well, possible. So first up, we've got to talk about this idea of the golden handcuffs. It's this perfect phrase for that feeling of being comfortably trapped. You're in a job that pays the bills, looks great on LinkedIn, but inside, it just leaves you feeling empty.
I mean, this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that Sunday night dread where the thought of the week ahead just feels like this heavy weight. Everything on paper says you should be happy, but your gut is telling you something is seriously wrong.
So what exactly are these golden handcuffs? Well, think of it like this. The golden part is all the good stuff, the great salary, the health insurance, maybe some stock options. But the handcuffs part, that's how those very same benefits can chain you to a job that might be completely crushing your spirit.
And this is where it gets really clear. Look at the trade-offs laid out right here. On one side, you've got all the comforts of stability. Money you can count on, a clear career ladder, stuff that makes you look successful. But on the other side, well, that's where the magic is. Fulfillment, being your own boss, massive personal growth. But it all comes with a giant dose of uncertainty.
So how do you go from being kind of unhappy but comfortable to actually doing something about it? Well, that brings us to the tipping point. This is that moment, that critical moment, when good enough just isn't good enough anymore. That safety net starts to feel a whole lot more like a cage.
And this whole process is almost never a sudden thing. It's a slow burn, just like this timeline shows. It starts with a honeymoon phase, right? The job is new, it's exciting, but then, a few years in, those first doubts start creeping in. Maybe you start a side project just to have a creative outlet. And then bam, you hit a breaking point. The way things are just becomes impossible to continue.
Do any of these sound a little too familiar? These are the absolute classic red flags that you're heading toward burnout. This isn't just about having a bad day at work. It's a constant, nagging pattern of just not caring anymore. And seeing these signs in yourself, that's the first huge step.
And when those warning signs just get too loud to ignore, you find yourself here, at this moment. This is the big one, the decision to finally stop just thinking about it and actually do something. Yeah, it's terrifying, but man, is it powerful.
This quote, this is the whole mental shift right here. For so long, we're held back by the fear of failure, of losing that paycheck, that stability. But then, something changes. A new fear shows up, and it's even scarier. The fear of looking back in 10 or 20 years and thinking, what if? Why didn't I just try?
And after all that wrestling, all that fear, all that doubt, it boils down to this. 2 simple words that can change absolutely everything.
But let's be real. Quitting isn't the happy ending of the movie. It's the beginning of a whole new chapter. And it's so important to be brutally honest about what that new reality actually looks like. It's not always a highlight reel.
This table is just a perfect no-nonsense breakdown. I mean, look at the trade you're making. The money goes from high and stable to low and volatile. The hours you work, they can easily skyrocket. The stress is still there, it's just a different, more unpredictable kind. But look at that one line, emotional fulfillment. It flips from rock bottom to sky high. And that right there is the entire point.
And this chart just drives that point home visually. The whole reward system gets turned on its head. You're not really getting paid in cash anymore. You're getting paid in fulfillment, in purpose. The real question is that a currency you're willing to live on?
Okay, so after walking through this whole journey, we're at the most important part. Now it's time to turn that mirror around and think about what all of this means for you right where you are now.
Let's start with this classic question. Seriously, just for a second, pretend money is completely off the table. It doesn't matter. What would you fill your days with? The answer to that question? Well, it's usually a pretty big clue about where your passion really is.
All right, now let's get real. Think back to that list of warning signs we just looked at. The clock watching, the Sunday scaries. Are any of those showing up in your life? Be honest with yourself. It's okay if they are.
We always focus on the risk of leaving, but this question flips the whole script. What's the guaranteed cost of staying? What's the price you'll pay in 5 years or 10 years in lost joy, missed opportunities, and just that lingering feeling of regret?
And let's land on this piece of advice because it's so important. Look, maybe you'll decide to stay in your job. maybe you'll decide to leave. The actual outcome isn't really the point. The point is to just stay awake, to keep asking yourself these tough questions. That right there is a win.
So, I'll leave you with this one last thought to chew on. It's the ultimate question, really. It cuts through all the excuses and all the practicalities. If you could just push fear out of the room for a minute, what move would you make? The answer to that? That's probably worth listening to.